Hello everybody, Michael here for Tactica Imperialis. I've got part 3 of my look at the laws of magic for Warhammer Fantasy Battles Tactics today. And today I am looking at the law of metal. The law of metal, also described as gold magic, alchemy and transmutancy, is based around the manipulation and transformation of metals. As you might expect, enemies that rely heavily on armour should beware the law of metal, as its spells either ignore armour or turn it against its wearer with horrendous consequences. So as you might expect with a law relating to metal, armour is not a good thing to have against this law. And that is reflected in the law attribute, which is called metal shifting. It says here that armour is little defence against a skilled alchemist. Magic missiles and direct damage spells from this law do not have a strength value. So when I talk in here, I will talk about how many hits it causes. They do not have a strength. Their to wound score is always equal to the unmodified armour save of the target. For example, a model with light armour and shield for a 5+ save is wounded on a 5+, whereas a knight with heavy armour, barded steed and a shield for a 2+ armour save is wounded on a 2+. Remember that a 1 always fails, so even a model with a 1+ armour save is still only wounded on a 2+. Models without an armour save cannot be wounded, no armour saves are permitted, and all spells from the law of metal count as flaming attacks. So this is a seriously powerful law for heavily armoured armies. Against things like skeletons, who are at best packing a shield, it's not very good. However, against Warriors of Chaos, who all wear armour for 4+ minimum, most of them will then carry a shield, or on knights, you are going to be seriously killing them a lot. However, the hit value isn't that many. There aren't that many hits, but it will still do some fair damage. So this is obviously one you can only pick when you know you're facing an armoured army. If you know you're facing elves, who generally at best will pack a 5+, 4+ save, is it that worth it? No. Against things where you're facing like Bretonia, where they're all heavily armoured knights with shields and steeds, yes, it is worth it. The signature spell is called Searing Doom. It has a 10+ casting value. So it's pretty powerful by the fact it's got 10+. It's a magic missile with range 24 and causes D6 hits. Again, you roll against the armour save for determining to wound and then you ignore that armour save. 24 inch range D6. You can choose to have the spell instead inflict 2 D6 hits, so you double the hits. On average, it may end up you don't, but that's roughly what it is. If you do, the casting value is increased to 20+. So you double the casting value to double the dice roll, which possibly means double the hits. So, is it worth it? Maybe. I mean, most units that you can target with a spell like this will have a very strong armour, and so they will not be that big. Most hordes are 5+ armour at best, with the exception possibly of dwarves. Spell 1 is called Plague of Rust. This is one that a level 1 would love, but possibly a level 4 less so. It has a 7+ casting value, and it is a hex with a range of 24. The target's armour save is lowered by 1 point for the rest of the game. So for example, a model with light armour and shield would only have a 6+ save instead of a 5+. Plague of Rust can be repeatedly cast on the same target, reducing its armour save by a further -1 each time. So you can cast this spell several times on one unit and go from 2+ to 3+ to 4+ to 5+. Bear in mind that when you cast this spell, you are going to make your other spells less likely to wound that unit. So this is best targeted at units you're either not going to target with your Law of Metal spells, or you are going to target with everything else. So massed infantry, if you can cut their save to a 6 instead of a 5, it's way worth it. Whereas if it's knights, you'll probably be targeting with something like Searing Doom, you may as well leave them with a 2+ so you can mow them with that. It's up to you, but I would say this is better against infantry than it is against cavalry and such. The wizard can choose to extend the range to 48 inches. If you do so, the casting value is 10+. Do you need to boost? Probably not. Spell 2, not 40k. Enchanted Blades of Iban, 9+ casting value. This is a lovely spell. I love this spell. Enchanted Blades of Iban is an augment spell with a range of 24 inches. The target has a +1 bonus when rolling to hit with all shooting and melee attacks until the start of the caster's next magic phase. All these attacks also count as armour piercing and magical attacks. Armour piercing means that there is a further -1 modifier to all armour saves. So, instead of, say, Strength 4 having a -1, it would be -2. If it was Strength 5, instead of being -2, it would be -3. If it was Strength 2, it would be -1 instead of nothing. So this is really, really useful, particularly as the strength goes up. So Strength 4 is ideal here, because then suddenly it's turning most armour saves to little to none. You can choose to extend the range to 48 inches if you do. The casting value increases to 12+. Don't get rid of this spell. Aside from the armour piercing bonus, you get magical, so you can attack ethereal units, plus you get +1 to hit in melee and shooting. So if you've got a stand and shoot mechanic in place, you get +1 to hit with that, and that cancels out the stand and shoot modifier, plus you'll be hitting with +1 to hit in melee, and that's really good. So keep that spell. I nearly implore you keep that spell. Glittering Robe, 9+. Augment spell, 12 inches. The target unit has the Scaly Skin, 5+ special rule until the start of the caster's next magic phase. Scaly Skin is one of the universal rules, and what it does is it is a natural armour save that you then add to with other equipment. So a 5+ Scaly Skin plus light armour and a shield would be a 3+ armour save. So it's essentially, this Scaly Skin is like +2 to your armour save. Is another way of looking at it. It's +2 to your armour save because it's 5+. So +1, +2. It's only 12-inch range, so bear that in mind. But if you boost it, you target all friendly units within 12 inches. If you do this, the casting value is 16+. If you can go for the boost, go for the boost. Because, seriously, if you can target every unit around you and suddenly they've got +2 armour save, they're going to be incredibly difficult to kill. Only really high strength stuff is going to worry them if they've got light armour and a shield or heavy armour. Gehenna's Golden Hounds. I don't like this spell. I would swap this one for Searing Doom every day of the week. It's a 9+ casting value, direct damage, 12-inch range. So it's very short range, and it's direct damage, so you need line of sight. Choose a single enemy model within range. It suffers D6 hits. This spell can be used to single out a character in the unit, or the character is allowed to make a lookout sir roll for each of the hits. The wizard can choose to extend the range to 24. If you do so, the casting value is 12+. What I don't like about this is because it's character sniping. In essence, it's character sniping. It's short range sniping. However, you get a lookout sir against it. So if your 2+ beat stick character is being attacked and he takes like 3 hits, you're going to get rid of at least 1, because lookout sir is on a 4+. You should negate at least 1, maybe 2 of those hits, which will keep you alive. If you get a 6, then yeah, you're only going to save 3 and then you'll be dead. But then you've got to roll to wound as well. So it's not going to kill that much. You can snipe champions as well, but they've got a 2+ lookout sir. And you can snipe rank and file, but what's the point apart from a multi-wound? I suppose the best use for this would be on heavily armoured monsters. But they're very rare. So anything with multiple wounds and good armour, there's not a lot of them around, but I suppose there are a few things you can go after. I would swap this one because I just don't see as much use for it as I do for Searing Doom, so I would keep that as the signature spell instead. Spell 5, Transmutation of Lead. It's a 12+ casting value and it is a hex range 24. The target suffers a -1 penalty to its weapon skill, ballistic skill and armour saves until the start of the caster's next magic phase. You can choose to extend the range to 48. If you do, 15+ to cast. This is like a better version of Plague of Rust, because -1 WSBS is great in itself. It's also a -1 to armour save. However, this armour save is a modified. You use the unmodified when rolling for armour saves. So I think, unlike with Plague of Rust, where the roll to wound gets harder, the roll to wound won't change for your Law of Metal spells. Plus, you're actually nerfing a unit anyway with BS and weapon skill penalties. So this is a good spell to keep, I would say. If you can boost, it's only probably 1 more power dice and it's longer range. So if you've got a really good sniper unit at the far end of the board, you can target that. And then you have the 6th spell, Final Transmutation. This has a 15+ casting value, so it's quite difficult. Direct damage, 18-inch range. Roll a d6 for every model in the target unit. On a 5+, it has been turned to gold and is removed as a casualty with no saves of any kind allowed. So for every model in the unit, roll a d6. On a 5+, it's dead. Easy. Models with more than one wound on their profile are only affected on the roll of a 6. So for multiple wound units, characters, it's less powerful. But against hordes, never underestimate the amount of power. And on even small elite units, you're still going to kill 2 or 3 on the law of averages for 10-man squads and 1 or 2 for 5-man squads. In addition, any enemy unit within 12 inches of the target at the start of their following turn, including the target unit itself if it's still alive, must test for stupidity in order to overcome the lure of the riches that have appeared in their vicinity, which basically means they have to take a leadership test or do nothing. So take a leadership test, that's what stupidity does. You take a leadership test or you can't do anything. There may be some connotations about melee as well around that, so I'm just going to check. Come on. I do like this book, it's quite well laid out, but it can take a while to get up and down it. Stupidity. Immune to psychology, so basically they are very good at passing general morale checks. Provided they are not engaged in melee, a unit that contains 1 or more must test to overcome its stupidity by taking a leadership test. If the test is passed, all is well. If the test is failed, they succumb to their stupidity. A unit that fails its stupidity test immediately stumbles d6 inches directly forwards. This is treated in exactly the same manner as a failed charge, so you just move d6 inches forwards, which is usually worse than your movement value. Wizards that have failed a stupidity test cannot cast or channel power dice until a stupidity test is passed. The target unit, the stupid unit, cannot take any further action that turn, so it cannot charge and it cannot shoot. Obviously, if it's in melee, it's not affected by this, but it seriously is quite powerful. It can't charge, it can't shoot, so for shooting units or fast-moving units, it's a great lockdown on leadership. It is risky though. You can choose to extend the range to 36 inches. If you do, casting value 18+. You may want to consider boosting this on the first turn, so you can target the big unit, take a few models out, and then everything around it is still going to be quite clumped, so 12 inches, taking leadership tests just to slow a battle line down is very useful, particularly if it's cavalry. So that's the Law of Metal. I'm not that well versed because a lot of the opponents I faced when I started out my High Elves were Other Elves, Tomb Kings. I played Orcs and Goblins, and I think I had 1 game against Warriors of Chaos when I took it. So I'm not that well versed, but it is very useful against heavily armoured enemies. That's sort of a given. In terms of my favourite spells, I would say Enchanted Blades of Iban, Glittering Robe, Transmutation of Lead, and if I had to have a power spell, either Searing Doom or Final Transmutation, depending on what I rolled and how strong my wizard was. So, as a level 2, let's just throw this at a level 2 idea. If I throw my 2d6, do I have 2 dice around? Yeah, I'm just going to get a couple dice and we'll see what we get. Yes, my bedroom is a mess. I do apologise. So on a level 2, it's time to decide what spells I've got through some random procedure, and we have 6 and a 5. 6 and a 5. That's Final Transmutation and Transmutation of Lead. Now as a level 2, I would swap Final Transmutation, because I would need a bucket load of power dice to go after it. I mean, 15 plus on level 2, I'm going to need 1, 2, probably 4 dice to go after it, and there's a high risk of a miscast. 5 if I wanted to boost, and that's risky. Transmutation of Lead on a 12 plus, I can probably make it on 3 dice. So I would go swap Final Transmutation for Searing Doom, and keep Transmutation of Lead. And that's my take on the Law of Metal. The highest spells are obviously probably best reserved for your higher levels, unless you've got some good miscast defense. Next video in this series, I will be looking at the Law of Light. The defensive anti-demon, anti-zombie law. We'll see how that goes. So thank you for watching. Be sure to leave any comments below or on my Twitter at Tactica Imperial, and I will be back soon. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again.